There have been a lot of renovations that took place at the Lethbridge airport. The city's hoping that more people will fly in and out of our airport instead of making the drive to Calgary. To talk about this and other big stories impacting our city of Lethbridge, here is Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Hyggen. Welcome back to Bridge City News, Mayor.
Thank you for having me, Hal.
Now, Blaine, let's talk about council, the fact that they also endorsed a new airport incentive framework to create new potential agreements with airlines. How will that actually work?
So now it's a very new a new vote that was just done here at our previous council meeting here. So it's that framework is ongoing, and I think what it does is it circles back to, if I could, just a little bit about an action plan that we also released, and that in that action plan we're there to articulate our priorities, and this is definitely one of them, being our economic development for the community. So that's a very big part of it. Also, it brings in that level of transparency. I know a lot of people are trying to wonder, what's going on, the money that is spent out at the airport. This plan speaks a lot to that. So there's going to be a level of transparency, metrics as far as reporting back, and that helps us to build community trust. So I always circle back now to this action plan that we've got out there, because it seems like everything kind of fits in to that action plan. And it's not a new action plan, I might add as well, Hal, in that you talk about the airport, but many other things in that we kind of went around the MDP. So we spent a lot of time here the last year working through the MDP. So we're not reinventing the wheel with this action plan when we address different projects coming forward or initiatives like that of the airport. But we go back to the MDP and the time that we spent there with community engagement and what we heard, and that's how we bring that forward. So very action oriented. And but it's very new, and so it'll take some time, but we will definitely have more to share when that comes forward.
Now, you mentioned trust here, Blaine. Many Canadians have problems trusting their governments, especially throughout the pandemic. Lethbridge City Council recently launched the Gateway to Opportunity 2022 Action Plan. Now, you feel this action plan will really help build trust within the community? Maybe expand on that a little bit.
Absolutely. Thanks for the question, Hal. And definitely, as the action plan states, we have transparency. We want to make sure that we build transparency. We heard that a lot throughout the campaign. All of us had heard that that there was maybe some lack of transparency. So we really want to build on that transparency, and so that residents can see what we're focused on. The second thing is the reporting. The reporting is extremely important, and the community wants to know what is going on. And so it's important that we report back on a regular basis. And not only that, a lot of the questions that I had in the previous term and prior has been on community engagement. We want to make sure the community is engaged at every level, and so that they're part of the process, part of decision making, to be very honest, by bringing that information forward. So that community engagement is something that is extremely important. And I had a slogan throughout my campaign, I know, that was listening to Lethbridge, and I want to make sure that stands true and that we continue to do that, because that's how the decisions are made, by listening to our community.
Like, some of the key work identified for immediate attention includes supporting provincial partners in healthcare and recruiting even more doctors here to our region. As you and I've talked about in the past, there's a real doctor shortage. How can the city really do that and attract some more doctors, physicians that are sorely needed here in southwestern Alberta?
Thank you for that. It's something that we hear all the time, that recruiting doctors is a provincial initiative, but still we want to make sure that we have them throughout our community. So what we've done is we've started to engage with different doctors in our community, as well as we've been in touch with the minister, and have had 2 conversations to date. We have more in the future, and we're trying to find ways that we can recruit, and not only recruit, but retain doctors within our community. We know that the number is extremely high. We want to make sure that we have physicians for those residents in our community. So we'll do all we can to work with the government to make this come to fruition, for sure.
Let's talk about the need for an emergency shelter here in the city, especially with some of the recent temperatures we've had below minus 25 degrees. What's the strategy moving forward for the city of Lethbridge in that regard?
Now, that is definitely something. Again, a shelter is a provincial initiative, but we definitely stay in touch with our provincial partners to let them know what is going on throughout our community. But as far as funding, that funding source does come provincially. So we're doing all we can. I spent a lot of time out talking with the homeless over the past few weeks, and especially during that cold snap and nobody wants to be out in that weather. And so it's important that we touch base and we work with our community partners on this. We've got some great social agencies that help us throughout the community, but leave this with the experts and in that field, and they will bring that information forward to us. And it's something that we're definitely looking at, and it's something that's extremely important that we get a grasp on for sure.
You know what's pretty cool is the fact that the city's adopted Oki or Welcome in Blackfoot, which is pretty cool here. But let's talk about how important it is when it comes to renaming some of the neighborhoods and the parks as we discussed. How does that really impact reconciliation here in Lethbridge?
I'm not a subject matter on this, but I want to be able to make sure that we leave this information for those experts, our Indigenous partners that we have throughout the community. Now, we do have an Indigenous Relations Department that gets this information, brings it back to council so that we can make informed decisions. And so truth and reconciliation, extremely important, not only in our city, but throughout our country. And I think we're making some good headway at that. We can always do better, but I think what we're doing so far is we're working hard on the truth and the reconciliation area, and we want to make sure that we just continue doing what we've been doing and carrying that forward.
Now, you've been mayor for a few months here. What have some of the biggest challenges been for you so far as mayor?
To be very honest, that's a really good question, Hal, because I think for me, it's been a time management. And it's quite a different role in that of a counselor going to mayor. And so time management has been extremely important. It seems like every 15 minutes of the day has got something. So if I would say anything, it would be time management. And that's definitely a number one thing. But I am finding that it is getting much easier with the support of staffing that I have here at City Hall. So it's helping for sure.
As you and I have talked about in the past, we live in a beautiful city here with the coulees, and we've got some wonderful parks and trails as well. Henderson Lake. But I took my family by Henderson Lake the other day for a nice healthy walk, got some fresh air, and we saw a lot of dead ducks recently. Now, you're actually working with the School of Environmental Sciences at Lethbridge College to determine why there were so many dead ducks. Any answers yet?
Do you know what? I'm not a subject matter in this field, but I did do the same thing. I was out for a run and I noticed that same thing that you noticed, Hal, and a lot of community members have seen this. It's extremely sad. And you know what? I wish I had the answer to that, but of course, I'm not a subject matter expert in this. So we are working with different community partners and those that will be able to let us know what is happening. Is it because we're feeding and we shouldn't be feeding these ducks or whatever it is? And it's just something that we definitely need to find out, because it's really sad to see that. Extremely sad.
Yeah, it certainly was. Now, Blaine, you and a number of others on council have expressed your displeasure with the fact that the province decentralized EMS dispatch, and the province says they're saving about $6 million annually by doing that, by centralizing. How has this really impacted ambulance service here in our city in Lethbridge?
We've heard a lot of different comments, concerns throughout our community, and how this is something that council has worked on for quite a few years. With this idea coming forward, and it's been a concern. It's been a concern. Delayed times, ambulances not being in the community. It's something that we definitely have to make sure that we advocate on behalf of this community to the provincial government. Now, again, as I stated earlier with a couple of the other questions that you had, I'm not an expert in this field, but we do have some great people working on that. And our Chief Adair, our newly appointed chief, has been a huge focus of his. And we will be having future meetings that are already planned with the minister to further discuss this, and the other communities and partners in the other communities that have helped us throughout this process. Others that have had similar concerns and shared some unfortunate time delays in ambulance services. And so we'll be working with them, working with the experts, and making sure we get an answer to this sooner than later.
You mentioned Chief Adair, our new fire chief here in Lethbridge. Now, speaking of public employees, City Manager Craig Dalton is resigning to pursue another opportunity. Dalton has only been the city manager for less than 2 years. Now, this is the third city manager in the last 4 years? Why is the city going through so many managers? It almost seems like there's a bit of a revolving door at City Hall.
Hal, that's a great question, and I wish I had the answer to it. when we go through the process of hiring a city manager and we work with external agencies, experts in the field, and they bring names forward, and city council makes a decision to hire a city manager, you don't know the timelines for that city manager. If he or she has something that changes in their life that takes them to another location or to a different job, if you will. And so, it's really tough to tell. I know most that or all that have left for personal reasons, life changes, and so each one does bring a different set of values and expertise, things that council look for on a regular basis, and we're really happy with what Mr. Dalton has done over the 2 years that he's been here, because it's definitely steered the ship, I believe, and council, I'm sure, agrees that same way, in the right direction. So we hope we find somebody that can continue moving forward with some of these different initiatives that Mr. Dalton has brought forward, because he's going to be greatly missed, but we will find somebody that will be able to continue the work that's going forward. I just wanted to add to this too, Hal, that we have a fantastic senior leadership team that is helping along the way too. So the city manager is but one role, and our senior leadership team will continue this organization going forward. So that's extremely important to know as well.
I was thinking maybe hire somebody locally as well who has a vested interest. They grew up in Lethbridge, they know the area very well, and they're not apt to leave because they have no real connection to the city, right? So maybe that's kind of what we do with our reporters as well. We look at somebody from Lethbridge College graduating from the program. They've got friends and family here, so they're not apt to just take off and leave. Now, Blaine, you work very closely with Lethbridge East UCP MLA Nathan Newdorf. Has he said if the province would potentially look into helping the city to fund a third bridge?
The discussions are continually happening with the province, because I know the information came back and it was concerning if we were to build this bridge. I'll tell you something myself, I couldn't support a bridge at a 12, 13, 14, 15% tax increase. So to me, I've always thought that we need to think outside the box. And that is talking with our provincial partners and federal partners for that matter, and find if there's other additional grants. And I've also brought forward, maybe there's an opportunity for a toll bridge. So that's a user pay. There's been some that have been pro that, some have been against, but I'll tell you what, having a 12, 13, 14% tax increase, I'll tell you something, I would never support that myself. And so it couldn't come from taxation. So we'll continue to advocate with Minister of Transportation, and we'll try to get that through in another way, but definitely not with the tax increase that we've seen and was presented to us if it came from solely from taxation.
Yeah, that would be a huge tax hit, you're right. Now, speaking of working with the province, Blaine, what's the latest with help for those who are battling addictions? Now, we have the mobile injection site set up, but what about more treatment beds such as Intox and Detox? What is the province saying in working with the city of Lethbridge?
That's a great question. And just last week, Minister Ellis was down and further discussing. We did a tour with Fresh Start, and that treatment facility that we have just on the outskirts of town. But I'd also had the opportunity to ask him about the asks that came previously, and we're approved. So additional treatment facility beds in our community, but not only ours, but on the Blood Tribe as well as in Fort McLeod. And so having this is extremely important. So I was asking for a timeline, and it's been confirmed that it will be happening early spring. And so looking forward to that, because it's extremely important that we're helping these individuals with, especially those that are struggling with addiction. So we do have hope. It's coming forward for sure, and there's beds coming.
Well, that's great news. Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Hyggen, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Hal. Appreciate it.